All right, welcome back, team. This is episode 6 of the Southend podcast. I'm sat here with my business partner, Jacob, and I'm sat across from the women's number 1 64 kg weightlifter in Australia, Olympic weightlifter. Fresh off the back of
fancy,
her,
doesn't it?
Pretty good title.
Yeah, fresh off the back of her competition in Fiji. She's also a coach at the best gym in Australia. Not
Hell
mentioning
yes.
any names. Young Zoe, very grateful to have her on the show. Thanks for coming, Zoe.
It's a pleasure.
This is her first podcast, we've just learned as well. So we're going to go through a little bit of Zoe's story, her background, and then her current training and what that means to us as a gym, as we're lucky enough to have her as a coach at our gym. So I thought I'd just get you to introduce yourself, if there's anything more you want to add from what I just said.
Can't think of anything else to really add, I guess. I'm 26, been in the industry for like 11 years now, training for about 15 years now, kind of in the gym space. And I guess I'll unpack my journey more once we get into some more specific questions.
When you said you started training 14 years ago, what was that? What did that look like? Because you would have been
Very young.
12.
Oh, then it's about 13. When I was like 13, I joined the gym with my sister.
Yeah,
kind of
okay.
illegally. She'd take me to the Fitness First in Maroubra.
Yeah.
And then when I was 14, we signed up together at Crunch because they allowed 14-year-olds to sign up. It was actually UFC at the time. And we just did kind of weight circuits and bodybuilding. And we joined in on some of the classes, like the group fitness classes.
Nice.
And it was sick, yeah.
And that was, you're getting into a little bit of bodybuilding at that stage as well, is that correct?
Yeah, like that was just more the style of training. I wasn't doing any competitions. I kind of had thought I might as it progressed. I never ended up doing that, but I did do bodybuilding kind of more seriously for probably about 4 years.
Nice.
What was
Yeah.
that on your radar from such a young age? Was that because of your sister? Or
Yeah, my older sister's 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
And so anything she did, I just wanted to do. And because we homeschooled, we didn't really play any sports. And all of us actually, like all 6 kids, all 6 of us are pretty sporty. We just never really tapped into it. So when she joined the gym, I joined the gym. And then before I knew it, my older brother and then my younger siblings were coming to the kids' classes and my parents signed up and it was a family affair, which was cool. But it was on my radar because, yeah, she was really into it and I was into anything she was into.
So I was going to ask you about your early sporting life, which you've kind of just answered. I suspect that you just played every single sport and that's why you and your family are all so good at everything.
your family are also talented. It's messed
Yeah.
up.
They're amazing.
Sporting,
Yeah.
musically, dancing, all that sort of thing. Where does all this come from if it's not from team sports?
Well, my dad was a marathon runner, so he did like some hectic, like 90-kilometer runs. Like he was pretty into it, and he grew up playing all different sports like rugby and tennis, and so he was really, really athletic, and he always has been. Like he's in his 60s now, and he still has abs. Like he's awesome. And my mum was the national champion in aerobics, so she's just always been really fit, really strong. And she owned her own gym actually in South Africa before they migrated to Australia. So they've always been fit and always been healthy. And although we homeschooled and none of us really were able to go to sports because the sports were usually on a Sunday, like the games. And obviously my parents run a church, and so we were kind of at church on the Sunday. So we didn't really have exposure to sports, having homeschooled most of us for most of our schooling years. And then, yeah, because again, sports were on Sunday. Even if we did join a team after school, we wouldn't have been able to participate in the event. So
Right.
yeah, we never really got into it. We just grew up climbing trees and running around, and
So,
yeah.
So it was the
different.
parental influence, and then like having so many siblings in a big backyard. That was pretty much what built the foundation.
Pretty much.
That's crazy.
Pretty much. We
You sound like you've had such an awesome childhood. Like when
It's
we've
really
had
cool.
conversations in the past, I'm always like, it sounds like such a unique upbringing. Because you travelled a lot as well, didn't you?
Yeah, well, they travelled for
and then
work.
homeschooling and
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely something we've been thinking about potentially.
Oh, you should absolutely homeschool. Homeschool the family, send them around the world.
Not necessarily homeschooling, but like an alternative education for our kids as well, potentially.
How would you do that in?
Well, there's other options you can go down as well. Like even with bit of a tangent, but even with River now, we're looking at maybe like there's like a bush school you can send them to. So
Yeah,
you
I've
like
heard
learn
that.
different skills.
That's cool.
But I don't know. We'll see how we go.
That's really cool.
If he loves normal school, we'll probably keep him there. But because homeschooling would have been, it's a lot of stress and pressure on the parents, I guess, as well.
Oh, for sure. I don't know how my mum did it. Can you imagine homeschooling 6 kids?
No.
It's insane.
Was it partly to do with your church family as well? Like that's obviously kind of like a big extended family. Is that part of it?
Definitely. Like we had other friends in the church who were homeschooling, and
Yeah.
so there were elements of our schooling that we ended up doing together for some of the years. It didn't really pan out across all of our schooling experiences, but it was cool to link up with other people who were doing the same thing we were doing. We never felt like we didn't have social lives or anything.
Yeah.
Like we were,
Yeah.
I think in the church
Well,
also.
such a big family, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
So you've never been to a school?
No, I went to school. I went to school in high school for 3 years.
Okay.
Basically, that was my. Yeah.
How was that?
It was horrible. I absolutely hated it. Oh my gosh.
That's pretty much everyone's description of school, though. Like, I don't think you're like unique by saying they hated
No.
school. Like, I hated school.
Yeah, you just had this other perspective, like, oh, I could be at home with mum
I
and
just
dad,
love
my-
that there's
my
another
brothers and
option
sisters.
there for kids, because like, how much did you actually learn in school?
Yeah.
Not much. Whereas you probably had a great education, did you?
Well, I just did what was necessary.
that's
I
what I
think
mean, yeah.
there's a lot of unnecessary things in school, but they have to run it that way. Like I understand that school systems are for a large group of people, and I understand that they need to facilitate it a certain way. Unfortunately, I've always said this, like school is like a size 9 shoe, and then you have all these kids like size 4, size 15, like, and they're all trying to fit into the size 9. It's like you can't, you're never going to be perfect for everybody, and some people thrive, and I think, like you said, most people don't. Unfortunately, that's the experience of many.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. Hey, without the like a traditional sporting background that you'd see from most athletes, and obviously it's turned out pretty good, like we said, for yourself and your siblings, being
Yeah.
around that family environment. Was it competitive with your siblings? Because I know you're all super
so
close.
competitive.
Like you're a very close family, which makes sense. But competitive wise,
Yeah, definitely. We go on a holiday every year together, and we always have like certain games that will repeat, and there's like champions of the games, and it's intense.
yeah,
And we're all super competitive. And like now, like as we've grown up and found our sports, and like and are actually competitive in those areas. It's funny to think, how did we go so long without putting all that energy into something?
Because I was wondering, because obviously competing is a skill which needs practice, right? And obviously growing up, you weren't competing in lots of different sports. But I guess you got that from your siblings competing in that sort of just like games and playing like that. And then did you find like that was something you needed to work on as you sort of progressed into Olympic lifting, like the competitive side of it, to be like,
That's such a good question.
I don't know, like ruthless when you need to be, and like focused?
Yeah,
and
that is something that I am battling more than anything now.
Yeah, because your standard suddenly is like escalating now, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like every competition you go to, it's like
it's higher stakes.
local comp, and then it's like national, and then it'd be Commonwealth, and then it'd be Olympics. It's like getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because I think everyone deals with competitiveness differently. How I've always managed it, and it's again like it's always been local comps, and then it's state and nationals. Again, like low enough stakes that I don't really need to focus on anything other than myself, and that will still apply in the future in bigger and bigger competitions. But I have noticed that I only want to do what I want to do because it's always me versus me. And at my most recent international competition, it kind of bit me in the ass. just not being able to see anyone else as competition, not because I think I'm better, because I just don't care. I don't care about medals. I don't care about what anyone else is doing.
Why did that bite you in the ass?
Well, because if I just listened to what I needed to do and not did what I wanted to do, I would have been able to get a medal. But I don't know yet. I haven't tapped into it yet, which is pretty vulnerable to say, but I haven't really tapped into understanding how to see myself as a competitor against someone else, because I just want them to do their best. I want to do my best, and I just want to hit the numbers I want to hit. So I think it's a little bit small-minded, and I had never thought of it being potentially I haven't competed, growing up, and I don't have that.
I love that attitude though. Like that attitude you've got, just like go. It's like a game for you, isn't it?
It is
like
game.
Fun.
Gamify everything.
And you wanna keep that to a point, but I guess I know what you're saying. The higher the level you go,
you want to introduce a bit of killer instinct type of thing, like into your. You want to beating someone else.
I don't think I'll ever be able to be like, I want to beat that person. Like I don't.
Can you hand that over to your coach though, and your coach just say,
yes,
you need to hit this.
Yeah, and that's
I know
why
you want to hit
this,
but you just need to hit this.
That's pretty lucky in weightlifting, because that really is what happens. Like it's not that you're trying to beat the other person. I guess you're trying to beat that number, and so it takes a bit of that emotion out of it. But I have noticed in just this past year that I have really struggled with wanting to beat someone. That concept hasn't really been able to connect in my brain. So I thought about working with the sports psychologist, and I think that I do see a therapist, so I'll be talking to her about that in November when I see her. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different moving parts that would have accumulated kind of to how that will affect my ability to compete. But
did you feel any different in the most recent comp? Because that was at the highest level.
Yeah, that would be the highest one. Yeah, the Commonwealth.
Did you feel any different, like mentally, like leading up to it, up on the actual platform?
It being my third international comp, I felt a little bit more. Like I felt like I belonged a little bit more. I didn't feel as sick. Like my first international comp, I thought I was going to throw up the entire time. I was just shaking and I was going to just vomit and shit myself. It was horrible. It was a lot of fun, but I couldn't believe how much the pressure got to me. And I still was able to perform well, which is great. But and then it was the second international felt a lot lower stakes because it was in Melbourne and I had my coach coaching me, and it was just a really good environment for me to thrive, and that was my best ever competition. And then this one recently, it was good. I felt good going into it mentally. I had a lot of issues going into it, like physically, with training and sickness and things. But I wasn't actually any better with the competitive side, like I thought I would be able to be. So no, I wasn't where I wanted to be mentally.
Yeah,
it's funny
in
how
terms
many
of the competition side.
Yeah, it's funny how many things you're discovering that you need to optimize as you just narrow down that line. As your lifts are getting better and better, there's also so many other aspects that you're trying to fine tune, and you're finding out there's more things as you go through the competitiveness of this sport.
Absolutely.
When you're on like the platform now, you're about to lift, is there anything going through your mind, or is it completely blank, or is it something you need to work on to keep it blank?
That's really good.
Because I find that interesting.
Is it the scream before?
Yeah, I mean the yelling's good. Like people always ask me why I yell so much. It's like just quieting the voices. Like
I love your celebrations as well. But I've seen them for years. In the gym. You do that exact celebration.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
literally.
Just so happy.
Yeah, I love it. I really do.
So is there anything you're sort of conscious about?
When I'm walking out there, normally in competitions, it's kind of like it is in training. You're stepping up to the bar with the same intent, like just thinking of that one or two cues that you have, just being confident or aggressive, and it just feels the same as training. I think on those bigger platforms, it is a little bit different. I've found personally, there is like the nerves kind of play on like other things in your mind. You're like, well, you can't miss this, you can't. So and then you have to, again, that's why you yell, you quiet those kind of doubts or voices, and then you get that same cue in your head. Then you're like back, okay, it's just training. Is that why you yell? Just go again.
To try to get negative thoughts out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's probably the biggest part of it. and just like rile you up as well. And
bit of adrenaline.
there's several reasons, but I think the most important thing is to like, it's like making myself confident and quieting the negative thoughts.
And you go through the same routine in terms of the cues you're thinking in your head and how you approach the bar, exactly the same in every lift in training?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, it'll be the same. I only have one competition session each week, and that's where we do like the classic lift, so snatch and clean and jerk. And so that's something that we prepare for well before competition, and then you get used to those, like stepping in the same time and things. Like, it's a little bit different at competition. Obviously, you have a clock counting down.
Right. Lights.
Yeah.
People.
So you do have to make sure that you're on time, and that can play a part, but you just need to communicate with the person who is looking after you on the day and make sure they get you out with enough time to do your shenanigans.
How much detail are you looking at with your setup? Like, when you say it's the same, like, how much detail are you actually going in precisely when you're sort of setting up to each lift?
Is it like right foot, left foot?
Yeah.
Right
like,
hand,
is there
left hand, hook grip? Is it like, or is it just
same
such a natural
or
flow now?
There's
put
no
the hair a certain way. You know?
Yeah. Oh, the two buns.
Yeah.
Any kind of two buns. It's become a bit of an icon now.
I might start doing that. As well.
Yeah. You could. Both of you could. Oh my gosh, that would be so good.
There's the last of our credibility.
Like, we ain't got any, mate.
There's no like very specific routine, like you said, like left, right. It will be more just the way I approach the bar. So like I'll chalk my hands, and then I'm looking at the bar, I'm visualizing my lift. That'll be the first thing I do. And then as I'm stepping into the bar, I stomp my feet, get my hands set. It'll be slightly different because the competition barbells might be slightly different to what I've used in training. So like there's little nuances, but it'll
like
be
in terms of like the knurling location and stuff.
Yeah, like that, and like some bars, like our gym bars, have like two knurlings, and then there's only one.
Right.
So like there's little things that might be different in the way I set up, like specifically down to like the hand placements or whatever it is, the way I do it. But
that'd throw me off, that one knurling thing. I'd walk in, I'd just go, no, can't do it.
I freaked out the first few times. I was like, how do I know where to put my hands if there's only one stripe now? Like. No, you get used to it, and I train with some comp bars now, which is helpful.
Yeah.
But no, once you do that, my setup, like to get set, is exactly the same. Like, shake my arms out always to think of relaxing my arms and properly propelling off the floor with my legs, and then I like make sure I get set, and then I go. But
interesting.
No.
Have you had any? Because you've missed a couple lifts in comp, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. How is that after you've missed that lift and then going back knowing you have to hit a lift? Or do you just treat it exactly the same? Are you able to just like forget about it pretty instantly, or does it just like linger in the back of your mind?
There could be a deeper part of it that I am not aware of, but consciously it means nothing. Which is interesting, because obviously you need to complete a snatch portion of the snatch before clean and jerk to be able to finish the competition. So if you don't hit any snatches, you don't get to clean and jerk, you're out. So for the first time I remember missing my first snatch, I was like, oh, like that's never happened before. That was end of last year, and I was for a qualifying event, and I was like, okay, well that's fine. And I just went out, and then I hit the second rep. Nice. And I had always thought, what happens if I miss that first snatch? Like, will I just have a mental breakdown and like what will go on? But it really didn't affect me. Do you know why you
missed it? Because that weight you probably could hit with your eyes closed, right?
Yeah. It was, I normally opened around 80, and I opened 83 for the first time. Right. And so I was thinking it's going to be really heavy because I'm normally opening around a little bit lighter, and I just sent it too hard. I just pulled it back behind me. And then, it really didn't affect me going into the next lift. I was just kind of like, oh, well, that's a bit of a wasted attempt. And then I was able to hit the second one quite comfortably. Yeah. And the other times where I've hit snatches that I didn't necessarily need them. I just wanted to get certain numbers. Again, it was just like a game for me. Like I wanted to hit the numbers I wanted to hit. And I think over anything, it was just like being surprised, like that I didn't hit it because I just really thought I had it. Yeah. But again, that could be something more deep. There might be something deeper to that.
I find it interesting when you say you sent it too early, because I think when people lift, they just think you're just maximally lifting all the time.
Yeah, just ripping.
Whereas you are like kind of saving a little bit in the tank Like, you don't need a full send on 80
No,
for
no.
you. It's interesting. I just think people are just not they're just not bodily aware to like how to distribute their sort of power into a movement.
Oh, it's hard.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
It takes, well, that's like elite level performance, isn't it? But
If you've hit your first 2 lifts, on that third one, if you're in a comfortable position, is that where you might push the limit a bit and then see what you can do, or is it always going to be something you've hit before?
No, we'll absolutely send it. We'll put whatever on the bar.
Yeah,
I love that. I love just telling whoever's coaching me to put something outrageous on the bar. I haven't really been able to pull it off yet, but the confidence is always there.
What is the difference in like how the platform and the bar feels in comparison to, say, our gym, like with the rubber floor, our bars? Like, which one in theory could you lift more on?
I've trained really well at Southend.
Yeah.
It is a little bit different when you don't have the competition plates. They have the metal center. That would probably be the only difference. Like, it's a lot tighter to the bar, which helps with things like whip, so feeling better. So for a snatch, it wouldn't really matter too much.
Jerk.
And then, and the jerk, it more or less doesn't really matter. I think you can lift as much as you can lift. It kind of depends on the day. But what feels really good in competition is like that entire wooden floor. Like, you're not pushing through anything that's going to give. Like, it's such a sturdy thing to push from, and the plates are so sturdy. Whereas, like, every gym has, unless they have a competition platform, you'll always have like a bit of slack in the floor almost. So that'll affect your first pull.
And it does affect it negatively, having rubber underneath.
Yeah. I mean, like a micro amount.
Right.
Again, like I've lifted probably as best as I've ever lifted at a gym like Southend versus a platform. I think the platform, knowing that there's lights, cameras on you, there's a whole atmosphere, there's people watching you. Like, there's the element of the adrenaline, I think, is what helps you lift more than anything.
Gotcha.
But it is nice to lift on something that's so sturdy.
Gotcha.
Because you don't have any slack. Barbell is the best barbell you can get. Plates are the best plates you can get. They're all competition standard. Yeah. It is good, but I think that's not necessarily what makes it a lot easier to lift heavier. I think it's more just the atmosphere.
It's not a huge difference.
No.
Okay. Interesting.
I was wondering about, like, when you started lifting and where you are now, how the progress of numbers have sort of increased, but also form and like any changes you've made to your sort of, I know you've made quite a few changes to how you lift as well, like grip and feet position and so on. I was wondering if you could take us back to like when you first started Olympic lifting, what that looked like, what you're doing maybe incorrectly, or what you sort of changed recently from that, and then where we're at now.
Yeah,
I know you could go on for hours about that.
Yeah, I literally could. I was like, okay, where do we start?
Is there anything which like straight away just comes to your mind about like when you first started?
Were you doing ollie lifts at Crunch?
Funnily enough, I think it was when I was 16, one of the coaches taught me how to do cleans, but I hadn't remembered until I was like a couple years into CrossFit, and I was like, I think when I was 16, someone told me how to do a clean. And I remember having bruises from it too, and I was like, that's interesting. So yeah, I did actually do Olympic lifting at Crunch when I was 16, but I must have just done it a handful of times and not really remembered. And then it wasn't until I went overseas and I was in Sicily, and obviously there's not many gyms in Little Sicily where we were, and there was just a CrossFit box there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do CrossFit. And like, obviously I was in like the more bodybuilding kind of PT, strength and conditioning world. Like, I had never thought of CrossFit as something that I would ever do. And I actually looked down on CrossFitters a lot, which was, I was very humbled very quickly. But I literally have a video of me outside the CrossFit gym being like, oh, I'm doing CrossFit today.
No
like,
way.
it's pretty bad.
It's funny how everyone's got a story for starting CrossFit.
Just, you absolutely hate it until you do it.
Yeah.
And then I did my first ever CrossFit class, and they had snatches in the workout, and no one spoke English, so they were just like, just do it. And I was like, okay. It was terrifying, but that was really cool. So that was my first introduction to weightlifting, and obviously that was in a CrossFit gym. And then immediately when I came back to Sydney, I signed up at kind of this, it was like more of a garage gym. I won't give any names, but we weren't really being coached. It was kind of just like for the vibes. We were just hanging out. It was just me and a bunch of boys just training. But unfortunately, because I wasn't really being taught the Olympic lifts, I was kind of just ripping it off the floor and like throwing things around. And I picked up a lot of really bad habits. And then obviously I found Southend, which was Kia kaha at the time. And that was really cool because I was able to have Ollie coaches and kind of get into it. But my first few years of Ollie were pretty rough.
Were you naturally strong, do you think?
Yeah, I've actually always been strong. Like I remember even in church we always put out the tables for Sunday church for the kids.
Just carrying it around
and
over.
Yeah, well, literally, like she would call out, like the teacher would call over they would say all the boys and Zoe, like every week. And then I always just thought like that's really funny because that's how people perceive me even from a young age.
Yeah.
When I say I didn't do any sport, I do feel like I need to say I did do gymnastics for a few months. When I was 9 years old, I do feel like I need to disclose that.
They were
like
very formative months, I think.
Yeah.
Your gymnastics is insane.
But I was thinking about this, but I do feel like Zoe is like, obviously at Southend, we have a lot of like really fit people, but we are like your average, guys and girls who have proper jobs, and well, not you and me, but most people have proper jobs, and you're still that weekend warrior type. Where Zoe's like, you're definitely natural talent with hard work combined is then
a real athlete.
Where Zoe's sort of like go into now, which is cool.
Yeah, even
because you don't see that too much like day to day. You know what I mean?
No.
Because you are very annoyingly good at like everything.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
She jumped in my class the other couple of weeks ago, and obviously trains, I don't know how 10 hours of Olympic lifting a week, and then she's just doing the most beautiful ring muscle ups I've ever seen. Just like
or it'd be like
I
can't remember what year it was. It was like 3 or 4 years ago, probably in the Open, and like Zoe's like fitness levels, like I mean you're fit, but you're not.
I wasn't fit.
Doesn't really train conditioning at all. And there's this workout with strict handstand. You remember one? Strict handstand push-ups. Handstand walking. It's got some like lunges and stuff like that.
Yeah, there was lunges.
Right,
and she does it, and Zoe's like top like I don't know, top 30 in Australia or something like that.
It was 13th. I was 13th in Australia for that workout.
It's ridiculous.
I'll never forget.
Yeah,
I did that workout 5 times that weekend.
Insane.
It was so
insane.
And I was just like, wow, like you could have definitely gone to that sort of next level in CrossFit if you wanted to pursue that, but I think focusing on a sport like Olympic lifting was much better choice, I think.
Well, I'd never really wanted to do Olympic lifting. I always loved the weightlifting side of CrossFit. I thought it was great, but because I enjoyed the gymnastics so much as well, I kind of thought CrossFit was it for me. And the only reason that I went to weightlifting was because I wanted to get better at CrossFit. Because I was like, obviously, if I want to, go to touring as an individual, I need to be lifting certain numbers to get there. And that's how the weightlifting stuff began. Obviously, a lovely coach kind of encouraged me to go to the gym that I ended up going to for specific weightlifting. And then after, I think it was maybe 3 weeks, I realized I needed to choose, because I'm kind of like an all-in or all-out person, and I was trying to kind of give all in to both, and that wasn't working. I was burning out. And
when someone sees potential in you and you get to that level, it's like you can improve at your snatch and clean and jerk while training CrossFit, but not as much as you need to, right, to be at the Commonwealth Games. Like, you need to be doing it every day.
Well, yes and no. I think my ideas have changed so much from then to now, from even 6 months ago to now. Like, it's awesome that it's always evolving, my idea of training and my understanding of Olympic lifting specifically. It's actually really interesting because I don't do Olympic lifting more than twice a week. That's it. The other sessions are all just power development.
Yeah.
So that's really evolved. But yes, in those early stages, I was thinking I had to do almost full-time weightlifting. And that's what weightlifters do, traditional weightlifters.
Yeah.
I don't train like a weightlifter, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I train like a track and field athlete who just happens to be good at weightlifting.
Is that the influence from your coach, or is that something which you...
Oh, that's 120% Brandon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, so that's quite a unique perspective, is it, for an Olympic lifting coach?
It's
how
bonkers,
he trains his
yeah.
athletes. And he trains everyone like that, or that's just for you?
No, he trains everyone like that. Yeah, it's been great. I think the question you asked before is like, how have you seen your numbers progress from when you started till now? And that's a question I love so much, because I think it's so interesting. When I started CrossFit, I kind of obviously was just figuring it out. And then by the time I finished proper CrossFit, it was about 2 years in, I was snatching 70 and clean and jerking 80.
Yeah.
So that was like after 2 years. And then when I started working...
very good numbers.
Yeah.
In the CrossFit realm, that's...
Especially at that time.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad.
That would still be
at the games,
pretty much
they
top,
be
top numbers in our gym, right?
But even at the games, they wouldn't have been snatching much more than that. At that time?
No,
probably 75, 80 maybe.
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't know that. I had CrossFitters who've been doing it for a long time being like, these are good numbers. You should look into this thing.
Yeah.
But then I started working with a specific Olympic lifting coach, and I was actually not contacting when I snatched. So I was just kind of raw dogging 70 kilos somehow at like 57 kilo body weight. Not sure how that was even happening.
What do you mean? Like you weren't getting any contact?
I had no contact. No
hip contact is what you're referring to.
Just wild.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's
my Olympic lifting coach, who I worked with for 3 years, I learned obviously how to move really well from him. And I love the finesse of technique. Like Brandon doesn't care about technique, which is hilarious. But and I understand why, but I do love the way things look. The aesthetics of lifting. I mean, it's beautiful. Olympic lifting is a beautiful sport. Yeah. So I love that my coach, my Olympic lifting coach at that time, taught me how to move so well. But in reality, over the 3 years that I was with that coach, I went from like a 70 to an 80 kilo snatch, which again, awesome. And then from like an 80 to 100 kilo clean and jerk.
Wow.
And then, so that's 3 years. Now I'm like been doing it for almost like, that was, almost 3 years with that coach. And then with Brandon, when I started with him, I had a fractured L5. So
that's
fractured my back and I just dislocated my knee for the second time. And I think that plays back into no hate at all to like my Olympic lifting coach. I love everything that he taught me, and I would never be here without him. But training how weightlifters train, unfortunately, like especially kind of that more kind of Eastern European style way, it's just like squat, pull, snatch, clean and jerk every day.
Yeah.
Like that's great if you're fully doped up, but if you're a natural if you're a natural athlete, like you'll progress and then you'll get injured and then you'll progress. And I'm in all the weightlifting circles in different areas of Australia, and also luckily enough to be in some in New Zealand and other countries, and it's the same thing everywhere. It's the same thing. All my friends there, they just have that vicious cycle of you're fine, you're injured, you're screwed, and then you have to kind of climb back up. And that's the cycle I was in for 3 years, and I was still able to progress to a degree.
Yeah.
But now picture me starting with Brandon with a fractured spine and a dislocated knee, and we couldn't do much. We were just kind of figuring it out. And I also had like a hip impingement that was pretty crippling. Like I wasn't able to squat for the last year. Like the only time I would squat when I was doing my snatch and clean and jerk. So my career, I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but my career was pretty much over. Yeah. Just with how much pain I was in, and I didn't see a way out of it. And I saw online that Brandon was doing an 8-week mentorship. And I was like, well, this looks good. And so I signed up to it, even though I actually hated all his ideas because it was opposite to everything I had known. A part of me just knew, like, what if I'm wrong? What if there is something to it? Maybe this pisses me off so much for a reason. And I'm really glad that I did think that, because I wouldn't be here. But so 8-week mentorship. After 2 weeks, he'd already fixed my hip problem. Then after another few weeks, I was able to start like moving again with my current injuries. And then from then, which we started like about March, like in 6 months' time from March, from all those injuries, I had already put 10 kilos on my snatch and 10 kilos on my clean and jerk.
Wow.
That's from those injuries.
Wow.
So it was just unbelievable, like the process.
Game changer,
Was there a couple of things during that which really like moved the needle for you?
Yeah, I mean, the hip problem was due to just like the conversation we've had about pushing your knees out. Unfortunately, not allowing any internal hip rotation. Like I just was jamming my back, knees, and hips up so much from that. So learning how to just basically, Brandon brought me back to the basics of biomechanics. This is the way the body moves. This is the way you're moving. This is why it doesn't work. This is why your hinge pattern is wrong. And then retaught me basically from the bottom up. And I think if I wasn't so injured, I wouldn't have been able to listen that the same way.
Yeah, of course.
We're quite unique, I would say, in that perspective because of you, that is. Because that is taught in pretty much every way. It's taught in every level 1 and 2 CrossFit course, and it's taught in most.
You're trying to whisper that.
Yeah. Get banned, get the affiliate fee taken off us. But this is like from your actual life experiences.
Yeah.
But and I understand why they teach it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Driving the knees out as you squat, but it's something which, from having conversations with you, and we've had meetings about it, where all the coaches now will not teach that.
Yeah.
And so what do you say to people when, say, their knees are coming in and so on? How do you then coach around that, or coach with that?
If their knees are like clapping all the way up, like as in like they're fully collapsed and it's starting from the foot, I might just look at other ways to strengthen their movement before they even do a squat. That's quite
rare though, isn't it?
If they can't even do a squat, something's really wrong. And so I'd be going into what's happening and why, and probably start from the foot up.
Right.
And help them in that area first. I wouldn't be trying to coach them through a squat.
Foot positioning and what their feet are doing, usually if you can sort that, then they're usually good.
Yeah,
right?
If their angles,
you don't need to deal with the knees.
Flex, that's a game changer, right?
Yeah, but I mean, if someone's knees are coming in, I'd say awesome. Like you're just doing what your body needs to do.
Right.
That's just your body's way of getting up out of that position.
It's like you were saying, isn't it? Like a lot of the biggest lifters in our gym, their knees come in.
Their knees come in.
Like
I mean,
Sean and people like that.
It's insane that we watch the Olympics and watch everyone's knees come in so much when they clean and when they snatch, and then we're like, no, but we shouldn't be doing that. It's like that doesn't make any sense. It's
been cool to see your influence as you've changed with your coach, and then how that's influenced how you coach our members. We have Olympic lifting classes specifically, and then obviously lots of Olympic lifting throughout the week, and also working with Star Strength. We were just talking about this yesterday. Their Olympic lifting coach is under your main coach. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Luke. Yeah.
Luke's under Brandon as well, and so their ideas just intertwine.
Yeah.
And it's so refreshing to be in a gym where that's available. Like those ideas are available because again, like I said, like what my coach is doing in this space is very unique. And it's going to be awesome, especially when we have like a few years more data to go over, like everything and how much it actually impacts our training. But for the time being, everyone kind of thinks it's a little bit crazy. But you guys are just like, roll with it. Like, this is cool, which is great. And
we're leaving it up to the expert for sure.
And
you.
And Jody looks after, obviously, a lot of the affiliates. And
Mm.
Jody really trusts Luke. They've been good friends for years.
Nice.
I was actually I've known Luke a long time. Luke and I have been training together since our old coach. And we actually didn't even know it, but we both moved to Brandon almost pretty much the same week.
Yeah.
So we've been on the same journey together, which has been really cool. But yeah, it's really refreshing to know that kind of I'm on this journey and I've got an entire gym kind of on the same journey as me.
For sure.
It feels like I've got a lot of support.
But from our perspective,
as we warm
Yeah.
up.
Lots of people jumping.
yeah.
Lots of people bouncing.
But from our perspective, it's amazing just to have, like, because a lot of gyms have Olympic lifting classes on, but the person who's taking the Olympic lifting classes are, probably about as knowledgeable as like you and me are, probably, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for like beginners and stuff, but it's really unique and special to have someone as elite and as such a good coach as yourself to be taking those classes for us. So we appreciate you I want you to just do what you want with it, really. You know what I mean? And we've got some plans, haven't we? In the gym, to really like sort of lean into that. And you were saying that you think we've got quite a few athletes in the gym who could do okay in Olympic lifting, like locally. I mean, not like your level, but so we want to try to like galvanize that and like lean into that as much as we can. So I'm super excited.
It's funny how the probably a little over a year ago, you brought a couple of members from another gym that had been doing specific weightlifting classes with you, 3 or 4 girls, I think it is, mainly. And the difference you can tell from like their Zoe's lifters, and now that's like just adding on and adding on to more and more of our members now.
You see people who go to like Zoe's classes for like, I don't know, 4-6 weeks, and you just see it noticeably change.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's super cool,
that's my goal. So
sometimes I'll be coaching someone and I'm like,
when did that happen?
Wow.
Give you Zoe's class?
That's great.
Yeah.
No, I really love it. They're my favorite classes. And I think that's something that you guys have always been good at, is championing the coaches to be themselves and to coach and teach the way that they want to. And I think that's why we're all thriving. We're all so happy, like all the coaches. I've never seen happier coaches, and I've coached at a lot of gyms.
But we're lucky to be owning a business where people are in the industry and in the business because they're passionate about it. Like we went away with one of my good mates, and he's in a completely different industry, and he has issues with employees all the time because no one cares about the business he's in. You know what I mean? They're just there for the paycheck. Whereas we're dealing with people who are there because they love being in the fitness industry. They love CrossFit. They love the gym and so on. So trying for us to like actively lean into that and allow you to express your personality, express like ideas and stuff, it just makes sense for us, I think a
huge part of why I'm so passionate about it is like I have huge stakes in it. Like I need to know this because I'm trying to get to the Olympics, you know. And I think it helps fuel it. Like,
that is what's happening.
Absolutely. Like I need to know this, and then if I know it, like I'll just share it with everyone who wants to listen. Yeah. And that's why it's been so good to do it in your space.
But
like,
you're saying that out loud now, yeah? You're going to the Olympics.
Well,
not going officially, but that's the plan.
That's the plan.
I remember we spoke a few months ago, and you were like, kind of like.
Well, there's just always.
It is a massive.
There's so many questions, and it's not even like, am I good enough? Could I do it? Like mentally, yes. Like I know I'm strong enough mentally, and I know that I'm capable physically. It's just you never know who's in your weight divisions at what times. You never know what weight divisions they're even going to have there. You don't know what the qualifying process is going to be. There's just so many things that go into qualifying for the Olympics. It's not even, and I think that's why Olympians, like especially Olympian to Olympian, like they'll be like, I know, like it's respect because the process to get there is actually what's so hard. You get there. I mean, for the top athletes who are medaling, that's their stage, right? But for everyone else, like they're just trying to get there, and that's everything. And it's a mission. So that would be the only thing. It would be more of a logistics thing. Like, would I be able to get there? Who's in the weight division at the time or whatever? But I do believe that I could go to the Olympics. Absolutely.
Yeah. How long has it been since you, for example, first did your proper Olympic lifting, clean and jerk snatch since you started to now? Because I'd like to compare that to just because I watched your last competition in Fiji, and I think the winners, the podium were from India. I can't remember the other. Nauru, the island
favorite
country,
lifters,
and then Canadian, was it?
Canadian girl.
And I was thinking a lot of these like Commonwealth and Olympic countries that they train their Olympic athletes pretty much from the womb, like. That you're either going to be a weightlifter or a gymnast, and then that's your path. So obviously you picked up this weightlifting thing a lot later in life than your competitors at this top level that started probably when they were a baby. So how long has it been for you? I just want to compare that. How
long have I been weightlifting?
Yeah.
So I would have started weightlifting when I was 22 and I'm now 26. So it's been 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
But you have been lifting.
However, that's only 4 years. It feels
crazy,
like it feels like I've lived like 7 lifetimes. times.
Yeah.
But I was doing CrossFit for 2 years before that.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
could say like kind of 6 years in the space.
a maximum
Like
of 6
focused.
years.
But I didn't know. I was
training.
no hip contact snatching, you know, like it was.
I think it's just crazy the difference. If we compare you to your competitors, just at like I said, an example from the podium at Fiji, it's pretty impressive.
I think an interesting note though, and this is something that people actually always ask me, is like, do you wish that you started earlier? And I think in especially the first 2 years when I was like, well, I have to go to the Commonwealth Games, and then I was kind of up and down on how I felt about being able to go to these bigger events, and I was getting injured, and I was like, oh, if I just started earlier, you know. I feel like that was something that I definitely believed a few years ago. Oh, hello. But as it's progressed, I've realized that I'm actually so glad that I didn't start earlier, and that comes with all its own issues. Like when people have been doing it forever, like they're only going to progress as far as they really can. Like there's a certain point where your body is going to give what it gives.
Right.
And if you find that earlier on, and if you get injured, and it's hard to hold on, especially also being an athlete at a young age, like how they manage all these things that I'm feeling now. But as like a 14, 15, 16 year old, like I can't imagine how they'd be able to be on those big stages. And maybe it's fine, maybe it's easy, but I think that it's really interesting, because I think it's really easy to be like, oh, well, if I started younger, I'd be at the Olympics already or whatever. I don't think that's true. I think
it's come out like in
cool.
CrossFit, hasn't it, recently, with like Hayley Adams and Mao O'Brien.
they burn out.
It's an interesting perspective.
I think
Very
it's
cool.
important to not.
And timing wise for
cop
you
out.
now, you say you're 26, so it could be like perfect timing for like the Olympics, like around that 29, 30.
Well, I've had my eye on the Commonwealth Games, and a medal would be awesome at the Commonwealth Games. For the past few years, like when Reese, my hubby, when Reese and I were first kind of together, and then realized we were serious, and I was like, well, this is my goal, you know. And he's kind of been there from
Met
day
him
one.
at the gym as well. Didn't you?
Met him at Southend.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I always tell people that, and they're like, oh.
Met him at the barbell.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
You would partner us up for everything.
Yeah.
Do you remember you partnered us up on the
Yeah.
comp day training sessions?
Yeah.
Coach
We used to do those.
Yeah.
Wow.
You nailed it, Jacob. You nailed it.
Definitely don't need extra help creating love affairs in the gym.
No, there's
We
no.
need an anti-cube at every
Yeah,
Yeah,
literally. So that's always been kind of the goal. But 2026 is when they'll have the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
And then the plan was always to have kids after. So that'll be interesting, because obviously the Olympics will be 2 years after that. Can you turn around? Can I do a tier to me? Who knows? But the plan will definitely be to Commonwealth Games, and then to have kids, and then that'll kind of just be up in the air on how
What
that
weight
goes.
category does she compete in? Tia.
She did 58. She was competing as 58 when she was in the Commonwealth Games and
Really?
Olympics.
And you compete in?
First few years as a 59, and now as a 64, which will, again, like I mentioned, probably change.
Yeah.
I mentioned that actually earlier.
Yeah, before we
Before we
started,
started.
some stuff with the weight classes potentially changing around you. What is your current training looking like in a bit more detail? And you mentioned off air as well about your nutrition, and then how that relates to the weight classes. What's happening with all that?
Well, with training, it's been more or less the same the past like 6 months to a year. I've been with Brandon now for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in March, which is insane to think of everything we've achieved. I've gone from like kind of like a nobody athlete to number one in the country. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
Just like when you said it at first, I was like, oh, I don't really think about that.
Right.
And
With
so to hear someone
with
else
no
say
social media.
it with no, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that's
Which does
why.
slightly annoy me, but I understand it.
Yeah, so the training's been evolving and adapting, because and he's always said it. He's had to make sure that he's always several steps ahead of me. So his ideas are always changing and evolving as well, to make sure that he's going to get me to where I need to be, which is what he always says, 130 clean and jerk. So we'll see how that evolves. But my training at the moment is looking like we always do a power session, and that's kind of like beginning of the week. That's usually your first session. That's just doing all like the really fast stuff. And then we've got a strength session, which is kind of the more, we have to do squats. It's in our sport. So
Do you like squatting, or are you over it? at this stage?
I actually really love squatting, but our ideas of squatting has changed so much. Like everything that we do now is like just make sure it's fast.
Gotcha.
So we do obviously the full deep squats. I do box squats as well on the Monday, but then on the second session of the week after the power session, it's a small strength, and it's still for strength. Like I'm still building strength. I'm still doing a lot of bodybuilding on that session, the second session, but it is still fast. And then my third session will be something a lot lighter, just move the body, or in more kind of recent development, it's going to be my track session. So that's just my acceleration. So doing my 40 minutes of plyos and sprint drills, and then sprinting either with the sled or without for like 10, 20 meters, and just working on, acceleration, just becoming more powerful. So those are my 3 sessions, and then my 4th session will be my competition session, which I mentioned before, and that's classic lifts, snatch, clean and jerk, and then accessories to bend your spine other ways to make sure that your body's staying healthy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you've just started working with a nutritionist, which you weren't at all before, is that correct?
Yeah, I wasn't. I was tracking, like, again, being a bodybuilder, like earlier on, I was always kind of tracking my food and looking at everything that went to my body, and I got really, really lean and understood all that from a really young age, and then ended up having a whole bunch of issues with it. Like I lost my period for a year because I was so underweight. That was when I was 17. So I think I've had like a really rocky relationship with food, as a lot of young women have, and especially women in the fitness space.
It's super important. I've seen a couple of examples of girls that they start getting serious about their CrossFit, even at like our gym level, and they don't understand this nutrition concept, which a lot of people don't. I don't fully understand it either, but they have the same sort of issues, like under fueling and overtraining. So I think it's definitely important for you to continue before I interrupted you.
Oh no, that's so true. And I think a lot of it can be subconscious, like people just underfueling themselves by accident. And I think I could probably say majority of it would be on purpose. And I think like for aesthetic reasons, they will want to be or look a certain way for whatever reason. Yeah. And that's definitely the space I was in before I started CrossFit. And I think, and it was years, like just kind of battling with eating disorders. And then it wasn't until I started CrossFit that I realized food is actually fuel. And then it just fixed all my eating problems and fixed my relationship with food, which was awesome. And I think that's something that made me even more excited about CrossFit, because I kind of thought I'll have weird relationships with food the rest of my life, and people will always kind of know and see that. And then it just changed.
Did you shift from like when you're bodybuilding, obviously it's all about kind of like how you look really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then once you got into CrossFit, do you feel like your mindset just shifted then to performance, like how I perform in Metcons, how much I'm lifting, and then you just naturally then shifted mindset from what am I putting in my body to keep myself lean, to then I just want to train well, train hard.
Yeah,
I think it's one of the main things. I think one of the main benefits from sort of CrossFit style training is because I know definitely from my perspective as well, I've definitely felt that as well. Just eating to perform and eating to train well because you enjoy it and because you enjoy seeing the progress you're making, rather than how you look. And
the results tend to come anyway.
Oh,
physically.
Yeah,
right?
you tend to look good anyway, right? But
you look like an athlete.
Because it can be so toxic, that world. Where I used to train in Coogee and like Titan Fitness, it was such a toxic gym to be in because of that. Everyone's on gear basically, and everyone's got an eating disorder.
It's rough.
And if you didn't look a certain way, then that meant that you didn't know what you're on about and what's the sort of point in, or like you shouldn't be included in those sort of circles.
Feel those pressure.
Yeah. So what was the progress then? So you started to eat more.
Yeah, and I think it was also like, the bodybuilding space is kind of like there's a certain body type, like they're leaner and they're like smaller, right? But in CrossFit, like these women are beasts, like they're jacked, and I think that my body kind of always wants to be jacked anyway, like especially being 5 foot. Like there's only one way for my muscles to grow.
You're built for lifting.
Yeah,
100%.
And I think once I started fueling myself, I was like, oh, like I'm getting bigger, and then I realized like I actually loved that because all the women I was looking up to were actually a lot bigger than me. No, not rather than all the bodybuilders I used to look at who were so small. And I think the environment affected what my goals were, and then obviously the sport is what directed what I ate, because I, again, like we said, like I had to fuel myself to be able to perform, and that's what mattered. It wasn't how I looked. And then the bigger I got, the more excited I got, because I was like, well, I'm look like the women that I look up to.
Yeah.
And that was really cool.
How is that changing now with taking on your nutrition professionally just recently?
I was really nervous about it. Nervous because like I think having healed that relationship, I kind of felt a little bit protective over it. And I did mention this to her when I had our first meeting. Funnily enough, she's actually also in Melbourne where my coach is, and my coach's best friend's partner. So she's kind of like in the whole circle. It feels nice to have a team that's kind of all together. And she's also coached by Brandon, so it's kind of all, again, full circle. But she fully understood it, and I think being in the nutrition space, she's heard all these stories 1,000 times, and so she's been really good with me. It's just been interesting because I think I thought I ate, I think, a lot better than I did. And it's been interesting to kind of, it's been humbling to realize that.
What does that look
I've
like
got a
then?
lot
Does
to-
she send you a template, or is she saying eat these certain foods, or is she giving you like macros to try to hit?
At the moment it's macros because it's so recent. Like it's only been like 3 weeks.
Okay.
And with the macros, I just have to hit like my carbs, fat, protein, and then fiber. And
so she's not too worried about what that looks like.
not yet. She said that like if you can nail this, like nail your macros on your own, and you send me the foods you're eating, just so I know it's not just like your carbs aren't just like Nutella, like
Pizza slices.
Yeah,
from
so
Denny's bakery.
she's like, as long as it's like relatively sweet, then she's fine to let me go on with macros. But she said like if I can't figure it out properly, then she'll just put me on a plan. And she said she also will put me on a plan leading into more important competitions. So it's a little bit more relaxed now, but I do have to hit those certain targets, and then moving into competitions, we'll do specific plans that she's written out, and we'll write them together, but it'll be what she wants me to eat.
I think it's a cool way to do it with the, like you said at the start, with the macro structure, because it forces someone to learn like what's in certain foods, like which foods are more valuable, which are wasted calories and that sort of thing. So even though you've been doing this for a long time, you've obviously still got things to learn. Yeah,
I think because I did it for so long, I just kind of assumed that I knew and was still up to date, but it's been too long, and I've obviously forgotten a lot of things. So it's been really good to brush up on a lot of the things that I did learn and look into, because I did care about it a lot then, just in the wrong kind of mind
Has
frame.
anything surprised you over the first 3 weeks doing it, following this new sort of
olive oil.
I don't, oh man,
teaspoon of oil?
I basically just eat fat. Like I'm not sure how my body just runs on fat apparently. Carbs are really hard to eat. Like I've been like it's
when you say carbs, what are we looking at? What sort of?
I just want anything that has carbs. Like it gets to like 8 p.m. and I still have like 100 grams of carbs left, and I'm like, how? Why? I'm just there eating bananas. That was me last night.
Wow.
I was like ready to get in bed, and I'm just like eating bananas, trying to fill out those last few carbs.
So what did you eat yesterday? I think it'd be interesting to.
All right, yesterday for breakfast I had an English muffin with peanut butter and honey. So I train early, and it just kind of, it's the easy thing to pack on the go. And then for lunch I had Nando's.
Nice. Fancy.
Me and Cajun went out for lunch with one of the other girls. It was cool. We had like chicken, rice, and broccoli. So that was good. That was pretty good. And then for dinner, I had the curry. I had chicken curry with rice. And for a snack, I had an up and go. They're pretty good. I normally would have had a protein shake as well, but because I had protein in those other meals, it kind of balanced it out.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you had a cheeky Nando's, so.
I've had Nando's in ages.
Nando's is
Thinking about it
good. spicy.
Thanks for that.
Yeah,
It's all people
real
eat in
good.
the UK, mate. England, it's
Yeah.
just like cheeky Nando's constantly.
The thing is, I won't get chicken, rice, broccoli. I will get chippies for sure.
Yeah.
Watch out for the peas there, mate. Peas are loaded in calories, aren't they?
Not interested.
Peas.
Yeah, the macho peas, are they still do them?
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway.
We might not
I
have
don't
them
really
here.
eat out. It was kind of a bit of a one-off thing.
Yeah. Fancy.
Look out for the peas.
All right, Zoe. Any closing thoughts? What's the future looking like? Obviously, we discussed Commonwealth Games 2026. Is that the main focus now? You just had your planning meeting type thing down in Melbourne.
Yep.
So that's the main focus for the next, what is it, about 2 years or less than 2 years?
Yeah, it'll be less than. It'll be about a year and a half away from now. But there will be 2 compulsory events that I need to be at in order to qualify for the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
And we had thought that it would be later on in the year because the competition I just did in Fiji was the Commonwealth Championships. And they had announced that that will be the qualifying event that I need to be at. And I'm like, awesome. That was in September. That's great. That gives me a lot of time to prep. And then they've announced that it's going to be in June. So that's another reason why that Melbourne trip that I just did was so important, was we have to kind of make sure that where our prep is, 2-3 months earlier than we had anticipated. So it changes the whole season. It means that I don't really get an off season.
I see.
So it's a bit
What's the
full on.
numbers goal for around June, do you think?
It would be awesome to be opening on what I've been finishing on, and then finish on, I really need to crack numbers that I've been hitting in training on the platform. So I want to see 90 plus for a snatch on the platform, which I've done several times in training. Just need to put it together on the big stage. And then I'm pretty stoked with how my clean and jerks have been moving. I would just like to kind of creep towards that 115 mark.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's big
That
numbers.
video of you,
You could share a
squat.
bar maybe.
yeah. No, mate. Squat cleaning. I can't remember what weight it is. Brandon put it up on his social. It's like you grinding out of a 110 squat clean, I think. And then a few months later, you just fly out of the
bouncing out
bottom.
of it,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's hectic. It's so cool.
It's been awesome to see how all the power development that we've been doing just transfers.
Well, it makes
over.
sense, right?
It
Like,
really
there's
does.
There's time and place for that slow contracting sort of movements, but for you, it's sports specific. It's just move fast.
Literally.
Yeah.
And that's, I think
I think we're going to do a little mini series with Zoe potentially.
Yeah,
Leading
I'd like
up.
to do a mini series.
let's
Just
do
committed
it.
you to that. But
Yeah.
little mini
It's
series.
your idea. You're doing it.
Yeah,
We
when
can
you
maybe put a petition together to get Zoe back on Instagram. Might be good.
Yeah.
Just so people can follow you.
if
No
we-
pressure, but
If people want to see it.
people want to see it.
If we get however many views, I'll
Give
get
the people-
Instagram back.
Yeah, exactly.
What, 10?
Yeah.
Give the people,
That might be pushing it.
give the people what they want, please.
Yeah. No, I will eventually get it back. I will
Nice.
eventually get Instagram back.
If
Week after Commonwealth Games.
whilst
hey.
whilst people can't find you on Instagram, how could someone come and lift like Zoe?
Find me at Southend on a Thursday night
nice.
and Saturday morning.
Nice ad.
And I am on TikTok. I should probably know my handle, shouldn't I? I think it's just Zoe Pukekura or Zoe Leisha. You could look up either one. You'll
Okay.
see me. It's the Nugget. You can't miss me.
The Nugget. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Zoe
Cool.
the Nugget.
Yeah, jump in one of Zoe's sessions if you want to lift like Zoe. You probably won't lift like her, but you'll get close.
Very possible.
Yeah.
All right.
Sweet.
Thanks very much, Zoe.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
you
me.
giving us your time. We appreciate everything you do for our members as well, and we're looking forward to the journey to gold.
Cool. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Thank you. Nice, Zoe. Well done.